Today is March 21st, 2020, and we are reading from the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 6, entitled Purusha Sukta Confirmed. Text, we are in text 9. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudírayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the names of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human, also Saraswati, the goddess, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Hare Krishna, everyone. Here in person we have Narayan and Eze, and online we have many people. We have at David Dear Govinda's house, we have Bhaktakis and Ramak somewhere. Dear Govinda, David. And Leah and Anne, it's nice to see you together. And Riel, I see Micah Subal, and I imagine Patrick, Rebecca, and Nalini are also there. And Ladini Shakti is here. Ladini Shakti, George Daniels, and Saraswati, Minnie, and Laura. Welcome all to our Srimad Bhagavatam class. So we are going to read from Canto 2, Chapter 6, text 9, one word at a time of Sanskrit. Yamasya mitrasya parimokshasya Narada imsaya nirite mrityo nirayasya budam smita payuryamasya mitrasya parimokshasya narada imsaya nirite mrityo nirayasya gudam smitaha payuryamasya mitrasya parimokshasya narada imsaya nirite mrityo nirayasya gudam smita payuryamasya mitrasya parimokshasya narada imsaya nirite mrityo Nirayasya Budam Smita.
Nidayasya Budam Smrita. Ayuryamasya Mitrasya.
Ayoyamasya Mitrasya.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Himsaya Nirite Nityo.
Himshaya Nirite Mrityo.
Nirayasya Budam Smrita.
Nirayasya Gudam Smita.
Ayuryamasya Mitrasya.
Payoyamasya Mitrasya.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Himsaya Nirite Mrityo.
Himshaya Nirite Mrityo.
Nirayasya Budam Smritam.
Nirayasya Gudam Smita. Someone online would like to chant?
Ayoryamasya Mitrasya.
Ayoryamasya Mitrasya.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Himsaya Nirityam Mrityor.
Himsaya Nirite Mrityor.
Nirayasya Gudam Smita.
Nirayasya Gudam Smita. Ayoryamasya Mitrasya.
Ayoryamasya Mitrasya.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Himshaya Nirite Mrityor.
Himsaya Nirite Mrityor.
Nirayasya Gudam Smita.
Nirayasya Gudam Smita.
Anyone else?
Ayoryamasya Mitrasya.
Ayoryamasya Mitrasya.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Parimokshasya Narada.
Himsaya Nirite Mrityor.
Himsaya Nirite Mrityo.
Nirayasya Gudam Smita.
Nirayasya Gudam Smita. Vayu,
Vayu,
the evacuating outlet.
the evacuating outlet.
Yamasya,
Yamasya,
the controlling deity of death.
the controlling deity of death.
Mitrasya,
Mitrasya,
of Mitra.
of Mitra.
Parimokshasya,
Parimokshasya,
of the evacuating hole.
of the evacuating hole.
Narada,
Narada,
O Narada.
O Narada.
Himshaya,
Himshaya,
of envy.
of envy.
Nirite,
Nirite,
of misfortune.
of misfortune.
Mrityo,
Mrityo,
of death.
of death.
Nirayasya,
Nirayasya,
of hell.
of hell.
Gudam,
Gudam,
the rectum.
the rectum.
Smita
Smrita
is understood.
is understood.
Translation: O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating all and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc. Since there is no purport to text 9, I'm going to read the Sanskrit and word for word, and then translation and purport of verse text 10. You can follow along if you wish to. Parabhuter dharmasya tamasya nadunada nidanam cha gotranam asti sahamita samahiti. Parabhuter of frustration, adharmasya of immorality, dharmasya of ignorance, and api as also paschima, the back, Nadia of the intestine, Nada of the great river, Nadinam of the rivulets, Cha also, Otranam of the mountain, Asti bones, Tam Ahati accumulation. Translation: the back of the Lord is the place of all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his veins flows the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. I'm muting everyone. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In order to defy the impersonal conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a systematic analysis of the physiological and anatomical constitution of his transcendental body is given here. It is clear from the available description of the body of the Lord, his universal form, that the form of the Lord is distinct from the form of ordinary mundane conception. In any case, he is never a formless void. Ignorance is the back of the Lord, and therefore the ignorance of the less intelligent class of men is also not separated from his bodily conception. Since his body is a complete whole of everything that be, one cannot assert that he is impersonal only. On the contrary, the perfect description of the Lord holds that he is both impersonal and personal simultaneously. The personality of Godhead is the original feature of the Lord, and his impersonal emanation is but the reflection of his transcendental body. Those who are fortunate enough to have a view of the Lord from the front can realize his personal feature, whereas those who are frustrated and are thus kept on the ignorant side of the Lord, or in other words, those who have the view of the Lord from the back, realize him in his impersonal feature. Om Gyanati Mirandasya Gyanajala Shlakaya Shakshun Militandyena Tasma Shri Gorave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with a torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Sarvati Devi Gauravani Pracharini. Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paskacha Jatarini. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I will read both verses. O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is above the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole of the rectum of the Lord is a place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc. The back of the Lord is a place of all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his vein flows the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bone are stacked the great mountains. So we are continuing to have a description of the universal form of the Lord. And in this verse, in purport, Srila Prabhupada said like it's to counteract the impersonal conception of the Lord, when it comes like the impersonal conception of the Lord as if that's the ultimate ultimate conception of the Lord is impersonal. So the universal form is there to help us understand that we can approach even the impersonal aspect of the Lord in a personal way in order to counteract that tendency in the world and that tendency in us. And because it's tendency in us, I'm going to focus there because I think it's what's most helpful. So here we have a description that shows that there is nothing separated from the universal body of the Lord, the transcendental body of the Lord. There is a personality of Godhead, and then the universal form is described as a transcendental body of the Lord. So there is a distinction there between his personality and his transcendental body. That's a distinction that's made in this purport. So to really understand that whatever we see outside of us or whatever we see within ourselves is not separated from the Lord. And in understanding that, not going to like, well, yes, that's just like, it's just, you know, part of the whole. Because to have that tendency can lead us to be impersonal and just like, it's all one. It's all one, it's all Krishna, and then not makes the sufficient distinction to understand Krishna as a person. Krishna as a person was likes and dislike, and in this description of the universal form of the Lord, we get to understand how we are part of his body, and as such, there is ways that we can think or think that are helpful in developing the relationship with the Lord, like seeing him from this front, is said in the purport. And then there is ways connected with ignorance, envy, connected with frustration, and that lead us to like be on the back of God and not really seeing him as a person, even in his cosmic manifestation. So, for example, right now there is a situation in the world. So, from the impersonal perspective, we can see like, well, it's all one. It's all part of the of destiny, and then kind of in doing that, kind of have a desire to come to a place of void. Like Srila Prabhupada, I really appreciate what he said in the purport. He said that is never a formless void. So, you know, we can see in people's mind, they may go into like seeing the Lord as formless, while also understanding, okay, well, that's all one, that's all perfect, that's all complete, but not understanding that, oh, maybe there is benevolence. There is benevolence in the world. Maybe there is a person that's loving, that's supporting, that does want us to be with him in loving exchange, in devotional service. So those descriptions help us to integrate all parts of the manifestation of the Lord in a way that we can deal with it in a personal way. I love imagining myself as part of the body of the Lord. It feels so sheltering. You feel like, yeah, this house is the Lord. And then if I go out of the house, it's still the Lord. And then if I interact with people, regardless where they're coming from, if they're nice with me, if they're not nice with me, if they like me, if they don't like me, to see still like, oh, that's Krishna loving me. Because in any case, it's going to be benevolent. Whatever is happening in the body of the Lord is completely connected with him. So I know to think like that in terms of a personal form of the Lord, is helping me in dealing with daily life, dealing with every interaction, to really see, like that Srila Prabhupada said, that I don't find it, but like all aspect, ignorance is also part of the Lord, frustration is part of the Lord, envy is part of the Lord, misfortune is part of the Lord, death is part of the Lord, hell is part of the Lord. That there is no separation, nothing is separated from Krishna. Nothing can be separated from Krishna, and there is nothing existing that is separated from Krishna. So what I would like to go into is the Bhagavad Gita, really, because in the chapter 10, Krishna described all his can you give me a Bhagavad Gita? In chapter 10, Krishna described himself in so many ways, and he says the opulence of the absolute, the opulence of the absolute. So he's really describing so many aspects, the ocean, and he's describing the strength. He's describing in so many ways, describing what he is. I am the test of water. I am the prowess of the strong. I am the shark. I am the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. So Krishna is like describing all his opulence in that way. So we can see in that is the two-armed Krishna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra with Arjuna is that original form of the Lord present on earth out of his benevolence. And he's speaking about his own opulence. He's speaking about his own opulence. And then at the end of the chapter, Krishna said, "O mighty conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestation." So again, divine manifestation, in a purport, Srila Prabhupada said, is transcendental body. So it's divine manifestation. So even this cosmic manifestation, the Virat Rupa, the universal form of the Lord, is divine manifestation. What I have spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. So even that, so full of wonder of that material cosmic manifestation, is just mere indication. Through that manifestation of the transcendental body of the Lord, of the universal form, we can get, like, it's a mere manifestation, meaning like we can get a sense of who Krishna is. We can get a sense, but it's like so small in comparison. And he continues and he said, "Know that all beautiful, glorious, and mighty creations spring from but a spark of my splendor." So even that transcendental body is just a spark of Krishna's splendor. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervert and support the entire universe. So that huge body of the universal body, it's a body of the Lord. It's a manifestation of the Lord. It's his transcendental body. And it's just like, with a single fragment, it's just like a spark of my splendor. It is an indication of my infinite opulence. It is a single fragment of myself. And with that fragment, he pervert and support the entire universe. And then that lead to the chapter in the Bhagavad Gita entitled The Universal Form. So it's very appropriate here that we will go back there. Of course, in the Bhagavatam, he gives so many more details about that universal form. In chapter 11 of the Bhagavad Gita, like, we see the big body, we see how scary it is with all those mouths and fire and and then Arjuna see the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he see everybody being killed, and he sees the teeth of the Lord crushing everybody from the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So it is something we can also meditate as we go through a big change on Earth right now. That on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, before the battle was played, when Arjuna saw that universal form, he was able to see every single person on the battlefield being crushed by the mouth of the Lord. So in that sense, Arjuna could see, oh, it's already destined. Everything that's supposed to happen is already written. It's already destined. There is no mistake in the universe, and everything is going to happen according to plan of the Lord. So in that universal form, the 11th chapter, I'm going to I will read a little bit from text 2. O Lotus Eyes One, I have heard from you in details about the appearance and disappearance of every living entity, as realized through your inexhaustible glories. O greatest of all personality, O supreme form, though I see here before me your actual position, yet I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours. If you think that I am able to behold your cosmic form, O my Lord, O Master of all mystic power, then kindly show me that universal self. The blessed Lord said, my dear Arjuna, O son of Pritha, behold now my opulences, hundreds of thousands of varied divine forms, multicolored like the sea. O best of the Bharat, see here the different manifestation of Adityas, Rudras, and all the demigods. Behold so many things which no one has ever seen or heard before. Whatever you wish to see can be seen all at once in this body. This universal form can show you all that you now desire, as well as whatever you may desire in the future. Everything is here completely. So again, the same point here that like Arjuna, Krishna described all his opulence, cosmic, that divine form. And then he said, okay, what is there the need to say more? It's just a spark of me. Can't you understand? It's like nothing. It's really not a big deal, this cosmic manifestation. And still Arjuna said, well, okay, he heard that, but he said, still I want to see it. I want to behold that form. Can you show it to me? And then Krishna said, okay, I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to give you the eyes to see it. And here we are seeing the universal form through the eyes of Shastra. We get to see it in a Bhagavad Gita, and we get to see it in a Bhagavatam. And then, yeah, it's a fierce, it's a colorful, and it's complete. And it's like Krishna said here completely, that whatever we desire, whatever we will desire in the past, whatever, it's all here in that form of the Lord. And so we can see how we can adapt that to our own situation. Our own situation is, okay, let's see that we don't have the eyes to behold the universal form, only Krishna gave it to Arjuna. At the same time, because we have the description, we are beholding that form. And that, and then in beholding that form, we can be like Arjuna, very humbled in front of it, very humbled by the mighty strength of the Lord, very humbled by the mighty power of the Lord, and how ferocious like that form can be, that it could crush all the soldiers on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were crushed. Like Arjuna could see that clearly. So I'm going to stop here because I like to hear comments and questions and what's happening for you in regard to those verses from the Bhagavatam and the universal form, and then understanding how all aspects of the Lord, internally and externally, are part of that universal body, a transcendental body, really transcendental body, or divine body. So there is nothing that's not divine in this world, on one hand, and on another hand, there is one thing that are displeasing to the Lord and on his back, and there is things that are pleasing to the Lord that are really allow us to face him. Hare Krishna. I'm going to read again the verses. Payo yamasya mitrasya parimokshasya narada imshayani riter mrityo nirayasya gudam smita. O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord, is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc. Parabhutera dharmasya dharmashascha pipaschima nadyonada nadinam cha gotranam asti samati. The back of the Lord is a place for all kind of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immorality. From his vein flows the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. Hare Krishna.
Well, I'll say something.
Oh no.
Okay.
Yes, Ezzy.
So you were mentioning moments ago how the universal form is complete, how everything that we'll desire or have desired or are desiring is included in that universal form. And for sure, I don't have the eyes to see the universal form. At the same time, you gave the example of how everything in the material existence is the body of the Lord also. And so I can see it in my immediate situation where I have been wanting to spend more time at home and I've been wanting to spend more time with friends. And now, given the body of the Lord with this thing going on, I'm locked or trapped at home, not trapped, like basically heavily encouraged to stay at home and trapped at home with a friend also. So to me, it's like those two examples that you gave are clear in my present experience, how the body of the Lord includes my desires.
Thank you for sharing. You can really relate to that transcendental form, and that transcendental form is still very catered to each person.
Yeah.
And you can see in your own life, you can see, oh yeah, I can see it's catered to me.
Yeah.
And not so long ago, I was on the phone with a client from Italy, and she's not, like practicing Krishna consciousness, or she's not really like even personal development, self-realization is really new for her, or she's just starting coaching, because of whatever, someone refer her to me. And she's locked in Italy, in Florence, so it's like really so much happening around her. And that she has also realization of how it's perfect and complete, and how it's so nice for the world. And fulfilling desire, for example, for the pollution to stop, fulfilling desire for her to have time to reflect on her life, all that. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else would like to share?
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
I hear you very well.
Okay, I have a question that I remember in an earlier class when we were discussing the universal form as described in the Bhagavatam, that someone said, or we were discussing how it's not so much, it's more of like a framework for understanding the material world, like for understanding Krishna through the material world, or like, so there was less of an actual form or person or something like that. It was more like a framework of understanding. Is that that's what I remember hearing. Is
Yeah.
that
One of the purport at the beginning of the chapter, Srila Prabhupada said something about the philosopher. Let's see if I can find it. It does express that somewhere, that kind of, there's a few messages given here, that something that's made up for, for philosophers, and at the beginning of this canto, the second chapter, it's described also that in the second chapter of the second canto, how it's on the first chapter, it says like it's an impersonal form, that in the first chapter of the second canto, the first step in God realization, it describes how the universal form is not personal. It is an impersonal form. However, for a class of philosophers and for impersonalists, to see it as a personal form of the Lord, and to see it like as described with the and there is so many of them. Sometimes the arms of the kshatriya, sometimes the arms are described in a different way. So it's like there is more than one universal form that is
okay?
in which this chapter, more than one, also in the Bhagavad Gita. So there is
Right.
one universal form, and according to the person receiving it, is going to help that it's going to help us really, like all that is to help us, because inside of us, all of us, we have impersonal tendency, and the different description of the universal form is helping us it's helping us to approach the Lord in a personal way. But it's not that the universal form is personal. Even here, Srila Prabhupada said it's an emanation. The personality of Godhead is the original feature of the Lord, and his impersonal emanation is but the reflection of his transcendental body. So that form of the Lord, the universal form, is impersonal, and the way it is described is to help our impersonal tendency to move towards personalism. That's my understanding.
Okay, yeah, it's because whenever I was hearing that, I was thinking there must be a distinction between the universal form that Krishna displays to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra and what's described in the Bhagavatam. So hearing you say that there's more than one, description or more than one, universal form, that's helpful, because to me the form that Krishna displayed to Arjuna is very personal, because he's displaying to his friend and devotee, and that it's he's like, this never been displayed before, and I just think of the universal form on the battlefield of Kurukshetra as a personal form of Krishna, maybe not an incarnation, I'm not sure, or expansion or incarnation, but I'm not sure the classification I would, but I just thought of it in that way. And so to me, it seemed distinct from the description in Bhagavatam of the rivers being the veins and things like that. That seems different than what Krishna displayed to Arjuna. At least that was my thinking.
Yeah. Srila Prabhupada does describe that the form that was given to Arjuna, it was never given before, the universal form, and that there is not only one universal form, and that's why it's connected to the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna describes his whole opulence, and then from his own opulence he manifests for Arjuna. He says, "Oh, I want to see that. Your opulence of yours, And they have a conversation, a very personal conversation. He said, I want to see that. And then manifest that body. And in that moment, it seems very personal. And then there is, even though in what we read in the first chapter of his canto, and then even the chapter before where he was describing, we had so many descriptions of the universal form. So there's so many, and in the Mahabharata is described that even Krishna manifests the universal form to Duryodhana. But the universal form that Duryodhana saw is different than the one that Arjuna saw. And, like Krishna can show whatever he chooses to show to us too, in order to help us to become more personal. I really like Ise's sharing, because okay, his desire to be loved in a sense not personal, but then he becomes personal because he's seeing it in a personal way within the cosmic manifestation, within the cosmic body of the Lord. And then in that way, he feels that even that virus is something personal. So I think it's very related with the comment of Eze, how we can see it as personal, and through seeing it as personal, really feeling cared by the Lord.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Patrick.
Hare Krishna, Marie.
Hare Krishna, Georgie and Sarasvati.
I have a quick question. So is there such thing as spiritual lust or greed or envy? And if so, is it something that, based on the description of, or ignorance, I guess, spiritual ignorance, is that description of the back of Krishna, are those qualities, if they exist in the spiritual realm, are they kind of just part of like the effulgence or the impersonal aspect, or is it something that like even in Vaikuntha, or like do these qualities exist also in the
spiritual world, the spiritual.
Yeah, in like relationships or in, yeah, I don't know. Is that kind of?
Yeah. Everything in the cosmic manifestation of the world, Lord, is kind of a perverted reflection. It's a perverted reflection, meaning everything has its origin in that pure form of the Lord, and then it becomes perverted by our desire, really. Our desire is what makes twist our vision. And the word for greed, spiritual greed, is loliam. Loliam is spiritual greed. And in fact, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in one of his songs, he said, that's all we need. What we need is spiritual greed. We need to have that greed that I want pure devotional service. I want pure devotional service. I want to serve with no motivation. I want to love unconditionally the Lord, and to have that greed, loliam, and then to have the lust. The original lust is karma. Karma is original lust, and it transforms. Prabhupada said it's transformed in that material lust, where it's really self-centered, like it's about my pleasure. And then when we are ready to do anything for the pleasure of the Lord, anything like, and the emblem of that are the gopis. The gopis, they are described like they are lusty for Krishna, but their lust is karma, is pure, because in their lust they have no desire for their personal enjoyment. Everything about what they do, even their separation from Krishna, even anything they do is 100% for the full pleasure of Krishna. And so it's called karma. So like everything in the material world it's a perverted reflection of something that's originally pure in the spiritual world.
Thank you, Marie.
We want greed. We want to be super greedy, so greedy. And that's the price to go back to Godhead, is our greed. Loliam. That's the price we need to pay in order to go back to Godhead, in order to go to that place where every step is a dance and every word is a song.
Yes. Hari Bol, Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you for the lecture.
Much
I realized that when I was reading that chapter myself in the second canto, like for me the second canto is very, very vague, and I couldn't really connect to that in my personal reading. And I don't know, it's like I experienced that it's related to my attraction to nature, how I like nature and just watching sunrise and different natural phenomena. And I'm wondering, like, what is the reason that someone, like, I feel just like sort of like shut down when I hear about these descriptions of the bones are the mountains of God, and it doesn't like really touch me, like what you were saying, that you feel included in the universal form. What is like the blockage that I might be experiencing, or someone, or to really relate to that?
Yeah, so like for you, it's difficult to relate to those descriptions of the universal form. You feel that it relates to you, and you also look like, and a lot of videos shows that you like nature. You look at cloud moving, or you have an ability to capture nature, and you have an eye to appreciate nature. But then for you, it's hard to connect the two, to connect nature and connect like with Krishna's opulence and with Krishna's universal form. Yeah. Well, that's exactly, I think, the reason that there is all those description is to help us to make that connection. Because without looking at, whose nature it is, where does that come from, we may separate the two, and then and that can lead us to impersonalism. I think that's very much the reason why those descriptions are there, is like to not look at nature like in a way that's like impersonal, like I'm enjoying it, but like look at nature as part and parcel of Krishna. That's Krishna. That's Krishna's. That's Krishna's the emanation of is what he said here. The reflection of his transcendental body is, and so the transcendental, his impersonal emanation is but the reflection of his transcendental body, So by seeing his transcendental body, maybe we will appreciate nature in a different way, not simply for the enjoyment of our eyes or our enjoyment, but we will start to appreciate Krishna in that form for his enjoyment, for remembering of him, for his service. But what's happening for you inside, I don't know. What will, if you were to respond to your question, what will you say?
I mean, I get the like metaphors or analogies intellectually, that the trees, I think later we're going to read that the trees are Krishna's hairs, the sky is something else. But I just don't feel that. Like, it's so far out, foreign.
Yeah, it's so far out and foreign. Yeah. So, like we are bhakti yogis. So it's not that our focus is to relate with the universal form of the Lord. In fact, a bhakti yogi doesn't care about that form of the Lord at all, because he's so absorbed in the personal form as Shyamasundar, like the personal form of the Lord. So, like it describes, Srila Prabhupada describes that the bhakti yogi doesn't really care about the universal form. And the universal form has the power to eradicate the impersonalism within our heart, and eradicate the impersonal tendencies. That's why it's always connected. Every time Srila Prabhupada speaks about the universal form, or in the Bhagavatam, or earlier in this canto, there is so much about the universal form. The impersonalism and the universal form are always connected together.
Thank you.
Yes.
What comes to me thinking about your question, Ramachandra Prabhu, and I think I feel similar, Hare Krishna, like that the bones are the mountains and the winds are the rivers. It's even like I feel like repulsed by it. But I think Arjuna also doesn't like to see the universal form so much. So that's really, like comforting that it like. But also, like, doesn't Srila Prabhupada say that like Bhakta is also personalist and impersonalist, that it includes all?
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Right.
so
It says in the Bhagavad Gita, it says there is a personalist and there is an unpersonalist, and then there is a devotee of the Lord. But I believe there is a difference between unpersonalist tendency and appreciating the unpersonalist as unpersonal aspect of the Lord.
Say it again, Mataji.
I like there is Vedanta Tattvavidas Jnana Yash that Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaniti, Chavyati. So the Lord transcendentalists who understand the absolute truth, they know that absolute truth in three aspects. They know the absolute truth is impersonal form, the impersonal aspect of the Lord. They know the absolute truth as Paramatma, and they know the absolute truth as Bhagavan. So they understand that, and they love all parts of the Lord. And that's different than having impersonalist tendency, like wanting to merge into oneness or voidism. And I appreciate your point, Ladin, is that Arjuna is dazzled. He's dazzled by that, like universal form, and he's scared, and then he doesn't want to see it anymore. He's not interested in seeing it anymore. And Srila Prabhupada makes that point, that the Bhakta are not very interested in a universal form. And the universal form is there to help the impersonal tendency in us, and like that. Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maya.
Thank you for class. I was just thinking how when I think about the trees being the hairs of the Lord and like the mountains and things like that being part of his body, like that actually makes nature more personal for me. Even though we're calling it the impersonal, or it is the impersonal feature of the Lord, like it feels much more personal.
Mm.
So it's interesting because I guess it's like, why would it feel personal for me if it's the impersonal form of the Lord? But it feels personal because it's like, oh, this is part of Krishna's body. Like, this is a person. It's not just this leaf or this tree or this mountain or the sky. It's like part of Krishna's body.
Mm. Yeah, and my understanding is that's why those descriptions are there, for us to come to a place of not simply enjoying nature. It's just nature, it's just there, and I enjoy it and it's beautiful, but like seeing it in its proper place, and then it feels very personal. We are in Krishna's body. There's no separation, and it feels, to me, it feels very reassuring. I feel really safe and reassured in that personal body. That's my experience.
Yeah, me too. It feels very sheltering. Like no matter where I go, I'm in and of Krishna. Yeah.
I do believe that's what Srila Prabhupada explained, that those descriptions of the universal body, they are there to help us to go further into personalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I guess I like the idea that like it's Krishna's nature and it feels personal. But like when I think of bones and blood and things like this, yes.
Yeah, because we have our material conception of bones and material conception of whatever rectal, material conception of all those things, and then And then instead of seeing that it's transcendental body, it's a transcendental body. All those things, in fact, are transcendental body. Then we just, like it's anthropomorphism. We bring it to our level, and then yes, the blood or the bones in that body is just yuck. Yeah, but that's a transcendental body. Thank you. Yes, Partikis?
Hello, hi Dini. Hare Krishna. I thought a little bit about it. Like I thought it interesting, like the trees, for example, the way that they compare to a hair, how they grow, they're full of life, they give fruits, leaves, and all that stuff. So it's kind of interesting. And I thought about like the sun. You know, it's like an eye compared to, if it's supposed to be Krishna's eye, like it actually gives light. It actually radiates light, it gives sight, you know. And then I guess I was just thinking about like the rivers, you know, we compare it to our own blood, like it's kind of gross, but you know, like rivers are clean, refreshing, purifying, beautiful. And I was just thinking about like how it becomes a little bit more personal, I guess, because like like the Brahma Jyoti is just supposed to be like formless, peace, no variety, you know. So I guess like putting it on another dimension of the impersonal, like that would be the pure form of impersonalism, right? It's like no variety, just peace, like nothing, you know. But with this, it actually adds a little bit, it adds some variety to it, it adds some form, it's something that we can relate to, you know. So I guess it's like, it's a step better, it's a step forward, you know. I mean, obviously, I guess what Arjuna was seeing was quite a bit more than like what a normal person can see, for sure, you know, but I don't know.
Yeah, that I appreciate the healing of Bhaktakis, because you appreciate the benevolence and the beauty of nature, of like the trees and the river and what they bring to us and what we can appreciate about, and how we receive from them. And then you're looking into, okay, and personalism is like merging into oneness. There is lack of variety and colors, and you can see, okay, like appreciating nature and appreciating the universal form. You can see that it's going from no variety and no distinction to making distinction. And that's a step forward to really appreciating Krishna, and I appreciate your explanation. Thank you, Bhaktakis. Gajendra?
Good morning, Hare Krishna. It's interesting. I have an appreciation of it, and I certainly think it's a tremendous value to see everything in relation to Krishna. So when we, you know, look at the environment, the earth, the trees, the components, to think, you know, somehow see in relation to God or Krishna is, of course, very valuable from the point of impersonalism. I think it can also be helpful just in terms of having a, you know, respectful relationship to the earth. If someone were to see, you know, the rivers and the trees as parts of the body of God, and they're wanting to be at all spiritual or religious, it could create some reverence for the earth as something that's sacred and holy. So I see value there. Aside from like just seeing everything in relation to Krishna, or even just being connected to nature in a way where the mode of goodness is present, that can help spiritual life and be a springboard to higher thinking. I it's really hard for me, you know, as a devotee of Krishna, to think in this way, as is outlined in the verse, because when I think of Krishna's body, I'm thinking of, you know, the form of Krishna that we're accustomed to. It seems like a big step backwards in a way. To connect the earth to Krishna seems very right, but to sort of try to visualize it as the body of God rather than just in relation to God or Krishna, it seems like a step away from me of my spirituality. So it's like, you know, when I'm seeing the trees, I'm just reminded of like the forest in Vrindavan. If I see the Ichatakni River, I'm reminded of the Jamuna. I'm not thinking in terms of God's biology or something. It's for me, it's odd.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, that again the same point that a Bhakta is not interested in a universal form. We see everything in connection with Krishna and Krishna's nature, and you find a way to be reminded of the personal form of Krishna, and at the same time you appreciate how the universal form of Krishna, if people could come to that level of understanding, how it will create a really platform of goodness, or a platform of respect, a platform of respect for nature. Yeah, and then yeah, the devotee sees the sky. He doesn't feel like, oh, that's a universal form of Krishna. He sees the sky and he's wondering like, well, I wonder if that's the color of Krishna's body. He's so much described like he's like a rain cloud or the blue sky, and so that's the devotee of Krishna. He has a different relationship with nature than the universal form, or meditating on that body. Thank you, Gajendra.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hi,
Rebecca.
Krishna. I'm wondering how Mother Bhumi like relates to this aspect of Krishna. Like I've just been thinking about Mother Bhumi, and maybe I don't know a lot about. I guess I don't know a lot about how the Bhagavad Gita describes her, and I'm just curious about how that's related to what how she's related to what we're talking about on Krishna's form.
Yeah, so Mother Bhumi, she's Earth. She's a personality, a demigod, and there is a lot of description, in fact, of the demigods in the Bhagavad Gita, and you know, like when Arjuna was looking at the universal form, he saw all the demigods there, and the demigods seems to have seen too, because it seems to be reactive, like fearful of that form. So there is no description specifically about Bhumi, but there is a description connected with the universal form, with the demigods. Most demigods are bhaktas, like they are devotees that still have some material desire, and so they don't necessarily relate to the universal form of the Lord. They are more absorbed in the personal form of the Lord, going to pray to Him, or meditating on Him, or chanting His glories, like that. And you know, part of the universal form of the Lord is our bodies. You know, like all the five elements are part of the universal form of the Lord. All the three subtle elements are part of the universal form of the Lord. So Mother Bhumi, Earth, she has the body of the Earth, and our body is like ours. In a sense, there is no difference between her and us. It's just her body looks different than ours. And everything in every cell of our body is part of the universal form of the Lord, and every part of our body is part of the universal form of the Lord. It's a material form. Yeah, that's my response. I would be glad to hear other people's response on Rebecca's question.
Well, we know that Bhumi is a very exalted, pure devotee of Krishna. Hare Krishna. That's there, right? The whole beginning of the 10th canto is Bhumi in distress because the earth is overburdened by demoniac characters, personalities. So we can imagine that, like, Bhumi is very pleased when those with envious, materialistic, non-personal mentalities, they start seeing the different parts of her body, the mountains, the rivers, the sky, the ocean, when they start seeing it in connection with Vishnu, in connection with Krishna. Because, you know, environmentalism, ecology. So this Bhagavatam is it's really the perfection, completion, and ultimate in environmentalism and ecology, because Earth is a person. This conception of Mother Earth, it's not just some sentimental thing. That's what we're talking about, that Earth is an actual demigoddess. She's a person, and she's really happy, and she supplies, she reciprocates in abundance, really to the extent that the residents are devoting themselves to Krishna. That's what gives her happiness. So this whole universal form conception, this whole paradigm, it's to bring people towards Krishna consciousness, and as you know, a basic principle, the one that gives value to the zeros, and watering the root of the tree, serving the stomach. We're all familiar with these analogies, and that when one comes towards the self, serving the supreme self in personal devotion, then naturally one doesn't want to kill the animals, and one is kind to the earth, and is not interested to pollute out of greed and like that. So we could just imagine that, you know, she's a devout personalist, Mother Bhumi, a very realized personalist, and I'm just imagining that she's appreciating and certainly realizing that this universal form, which takes many forms, as Krishna showed a universal form to Duryodhana. He didn't get it. He showed one to Arjuna. It's being revealed in different places in the Bhagavatam, different forms of the universal form, and it's all meant to bring the spirit souls, say, on earth towards personalism. So we can just we can know that she's appreciating that and very, very encouraging that for those for whom it's a helpful bridge, related to Bhakti Keith's sharing, that it's like this universal, it's like impersonal, but it's a bridge from kind of like the undifferentiated white light type of impersonalism towards serving Shamasundar, Shamam Shibangalalita Niyata Prakasham, the eternal, ever graceful, threefold bending form, playing a flute like that. So that's something that comes to me in relation to Mother Bhumi. And in the purport, particularly, Prabhupada talks, while the verses on the purport, it's talked about the back of the Lord. So that can give us a context, because this is all, it's described by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, and that's described by Sutta Goswami speaking to the sages at Namashranya headed by Shaunika, and it's all narrated by Vyasadeva. So if we just take some context there, in the 7th chapter of the 1st canto, right at the beginning, it's the chapter that it talks about how Ashvatthama killed the sons of Draupadi with the Brahmastra weapon, and that's all there. But at the beginning of that chapter, it's about Vyasadev's meditation after he had his conversation with Narada Muni. Vyasadev's meditation that led to him narrating the whole Bhagavatam. And it's so directly related to these verses and purports that Vyasadev's meditation, he meditated, he was in his cottage on the banks of the Sarasvati, surrounded by berry trees, and he went through some purification rituals, and he meditated, and he got a direct realized vision of the absolute. And it's very clear that that realized vision of the absolute was not matter, it was not void, it was not the impersonal oneness. The realized vision of the absolute was Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. And it's described Bhakti Yogena Manasi, Vyasadev's meditation. It was a trance of bhakti. And it's just like these verses. So he saw Krishna, and behind Krishna, on Krishna's back, was the material energy. Was the material energy. So that was the back of Krishna. And it's a very relevant part of Bhagavatam, because it's clear that the compiler of the Vedas, his realization of the absolute is not the non-personal oneness. It's Sri Krishna. It's Sri Krishna. And that Bhakti Yoga is the solution. So Bhakti Yoga is a solution to get rid of the unwanted things in the heart. And so he's giving these descriptions just to keep Vyasadev's consciousness in mind. He's giving all these descriptions of the universal form to bring everyone towards bhakti.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarity.
I wanted to say that I really relate to Gajendra's sharing about connecting more to the activities through nature. Like I personally, anytime I see a hill or a mountain, I remember Govardhan Hill. It's really, really soothing. Thank you, Gajendra.
Yeah, I also like the most drastic experience for me is where he says that I'm the splendor and fire. You know, it's just because I grew up with my dad at cabin, and we'd sit out and roast marshmallows and stuff, and I remember like you could just sit there and look at it, and you're just like captivated by the fire, you know, and it's just so calming and warm inside and wonderful. And you know, it's like it is a direct experience, and I guess the Srimad Bhagavatam, or that's Bhagavad Gita, is just pointing out what the source of that is. And then another interesting connection, I thought, like, say, you know, like in relation to music, you ever hear country music, how it's still, even despite the fact that most of the music, the popular music, is becoming quite degraded and doesn't talk anything about God or spirituality. If you listen to even the new country music, it mentions God, it mentions these things. And I thought it was interesting about how that effect is there. It's just because of the atmosphere, the people, like they're in God's country, and they're getting some influence, they're getting some inspiration, and that connection is just like natural to happen, you know, like.
Thanks for that. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada would sometimes quote the English poet Cowper, and Prabhupada would quote Cowper saying, "The city is made by man, the country is made by God." I'll just follow up with some experience on Keith's comment. I remember my first months in Israel was in Arad, which was a development town that was 1980. Desert. It's the Negev, but Hamidbar Negev, and it's the Negev desert. And I was there in 83, 84. And so it was this very amazing development town created by the Israelis. And just, it's in the middle of the desert, and they just figured out how to get water there. And it was a very nice town. And I did some studying there, and and then I would sometimes take japa walks. I would, like, every day take japa walks, and just like there would be this town, and then you just take a japa walk, and then boom, you're in the desert, and walk 5 minutes, 1 or 2 japa rounds, and there's Bedouins with camels, like that. And so I just noted very clearly within the town, and we were taking philosophy courses and very intellectual, sophisticated, some courses in Zionism, mostly non-theistic Zionism, I'll say, not all. And anyhow, so so there was all these fancy philosophies which were godless, but like I would go into the desert, and I remember I had one friend, Hassan. It's in my book, Krishna's Around the Druze. I met some Bedouin. And like for the Bedouins, like it was very clear to them that they could not create the sand or the sky. But for the intellectual philosophers in the Wuj's Institute, there was this theory and that theory that actually came from matter and all these non-theistic theories. So just relate to those who lived in the country. Of course, here the country is like maybe Kansas or Nebraska, but there the country was the desert and the sky and camels, and it was for them, and these were very simple, uneducated people, and it was very clear to them that the idea of there's no God, there's no supreme creator would just be a complete foolish, absurd philosophy. And yes. There's the quote from George Orwell, who said, some ideas are so absurd that only an intellectual could believe them. So I realized, because like country music is not seen as like the intellectual type of music, but for me it reminds me of the times with the Bedouins in the desert, and it was just so obvious to them the existence of a supreme personal creator.
Thank you for sharing.
That's funny when you say they were simple and uneducated. That's exactly what I learned that God is for. Like only uneducated people believe in God. So it makes sense.
Right. Well, it's funny anymore. Sorry.
It's very well known that only like uneducated and sophisticated and primitive people will believe in God.
Yes, so of course these Bedouins in the desert believed in God because
yeah.
That's Lord Tanya tells Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he's like your poetry is so intellectual, or it's so advanced that nobody can understand it. That was funny. Like a funny dig there, you know.
Thank you, Bhaktakis, for that example. Ram Tara, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare